My name is Roy Lappioli. I have the honor of running the education office, and one of the indirect tasks that we've been handed is the commissioning program, the enlisted commissioning program. They pulled us out of that, so we've been manned. It's all over it's all over the source program documents, the Academy, ROTC, OTS, but AFPC yanked us out of it. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why, because this is a controlling statement for the rest of this brief. Here's the Air Force's perspective on an enlisted person, or anybody for that matter, but in this case, an enlisted person to become an officer. If you can't get into their site and figure out the application process, then you ought not even be applying. It sounds cold, but that is the way it is. Okay, so we're going to introduce you to some basic information. My goal today, I have two goals. I'm going to introduce you to some basic information about some programs, and the most important thing is I'm going to provide you the links. So you have a link that you can go in and connect to the program in which you're interested in. A lot of you that called me or emailed us, I've sent you the link, but if not, I'll send you a copy of these slides, and that way you have the link. You'll just let me know, okay, and I'll just send it to the whole group again. It's easy. That's why we have you sign in, okay? The links are important, and I will tell you, I'll stand up here today and I'll brief something as we know it, and it may be outdated in 2 days. We don't know, because each of the program managers for each of the medical side, the JAG, OTS, ROTC, Academy, they may change the rule sets, they may put in some temporary limitations, or they may allow some waivers that they don't typically allow, and so you've got to stay active and linked into the site of the program in which you're interested in and which you're working towards. Fair enough? Okay, so let me share a few thoughts before we jump into well, here's an overview. We're going to give you the slides, which will talk through some programs. You can ask questions. I may or may not know the answer, but we'll give the slides first, and then we'll introduce our college reps that are here to help you in case you have some immediate education needs to get you where you want to go. Doesn't mean you're forced to go to any one of them. It's just we make them available. And then we'll take a break, and after break, we'll rearrange the stage a little bit, and we'll give our enlisted to officer mentors. We have 2 of 7 here thus far. Some of them said that they would be late, so because they know it's the slideshow first and then the briefing the second hour. But then we'll turn the floor over to them, and they will try and answer the questions that they are aware of in their source of commissioning or just general questions. Okay? So here's some other sort of controlling comments before we get started. What do you think the Air Force is looking for to select enlisted folks to become an officer? What is the Air Force's perspective on what an officer does? Be careful, we have 2 in the front. I'm just kidding. But what is it that you think that they're really looking for? What's the difference in enlisted and officers? Leadership. Now, we know that leadership is inherent of any rank, responsibility, or whatever, but leadership, you bet. They are the formal, if you will, leaders. Probably, I'm going to hitchhike a 0.5 onto leadership. The officers are the decision makers for the United States Air Force. Think about in your squadron, when you need some sort of signature authority, a decision made, a quality control indicator made, a block in a career or a rite of passage in a career, it's going to be typically your commander. It's going to be an officer. And so as you take a look at the programs in which you're applying for, and they're not all the same, and so we'll talk to some uniqueness. But you're going to have an opportunity to write on yourself a little bit, or have others write on you, okay? If you're a maintainer, right, and your entire statement, like on an Air Force Form 56, I'll explain that more, that's the workhorse for most of your packages, and you write all the technical things you've done, okay, that's not necessarily addressing leadership. Somebody needs to tie those accomplishments, what you do, you know, the mission capable rate based upon the sorties, you know, based upon the things that you're doing out in the field. We have to tie it to decision making and leadership. okay? If you can't get a position to make decisions or leadership, let's say you're an A1C in the plumbing shop at CE, or the WIFM's shop, I need to be correct on that. You might think, well, I don't get to make any types of decisions. Well, I would say you do, but those decisions might not articulate well on paper, but there are committees, there are councils all over base that are looking for leadership. An Airman's Council, right? A AFSA chapter. There's areas out there that you can go, and hopefully you're not doing it just for this, because we need great people involved. Your squadron booster clubs. If you're a president of a squadron booster club and you're moving that booster club forward, that gives you and your commander later the ability to articulate your demonstrated decision-making and leadership. So think about this. We know the Air Force puts a lot of emphasis in general on community involvement, but there's a huge reason, a big reason why. And one of them, especially for our young folks, is at your level, you may not get to articulate well. There are other ways to articulate your ability to get out front and lead, okay? We know that leadership is just the art of influencing people to accomplish a common task. And sometimes that might be hard to articulate if you're on the bottom kind of looking up at the top of the hill, okay? The other thing is your commander is your initial approval or denial of your ability to even apply. So if they don't sign off, you're dead in the water, okay? And so if you are really interested in one of the programs, through your chain of command, I'd recommend that you make an appointment with your commander to articulate your interest in becoming an officer, because you're going to need their support. And it's amazing. I've been a first sergeant, squadron superintendent, group superintendent, wing command chief, and at every level, the commanders would say, I just wish I knew. I wish I knew that, even on their own staff, I wish I knew that Sergeant Roy was interested in doing it. I didn't know. I've had opportunities that have come through my office that have passed by, and if I had only known, okay? So let's start with a basic communication of success. The number one thing that you can do to articulate and have a chance of becoming an officer is doing the job they're giving you right now, and do it well. Do it well. Show that you're a good maintainer. Show that you're a good logistician. Show that you're a good air traffic controller. You're a good heavy equipment operator. Whatever medical technician, whatever you do, perfect it and do it well. Okay? Perfect it and do it well. We see a lot of folks that spend a lot of time in college, spend a lot of time in packaging, spend a lot of time in community involvement and those sorts of things, but they don't do their job well. They don't do their jobs well. And maybe it used to work because we had so many people in the Air Force, but I'm here to tell you that, it's not going to happen that way. So I'd say, in my opinion only, your better commanders, when they hear that there's an appointment that somebody wants to earn a commission, first thing they're going to do is they're going to reach out to their chief or their shirt and going to say, hey, tell me about this guy or gal. And if the chief or shirt can't really articulate anything, then you've already got half a step against you. Okay, that doesn't mean you're brand new. You want to articulate it, that's fine. But as soon as you say it, imagine the interview is beginning. As soon as it's known that you want to become an officer, the interview is beginning, because folks are going to watch you a little bit differently. They might scrutinize your activities and decisions a little differently. That's a fact, because they're going to sign their name saying, I recommend this person to be commissioned in the United States Air Force and make decisions and lead our great people of the United States Air Force. So those are some setup statements, regardless of what program you're applying for, okay? You have to show a track record of performance above potential, of performance in leadership, and you're going to have to get your commander on board. If you're in a deficit with your current commander, and you have time to wait, then you ought to wait. And you ought to work on whatever puts you in a deficit and wait for a changeover, and then articulate. But again, you may still have the same shirt and same superintendent. So you may have some damage. If you find yourself that you're in a deficit, you may have a little damage control that you may have to do to get yourself into the commander's office and to get you on a glide path or, you know, a track to apply to become an officer. Okay? It's also important, this base, not just this base, I've been at several, a lot of times we missed some of the command communicated opportunities. SLEC P, SLEC O, Senior Leader Commissioning for OTS and Senior Leader Commissioning for ROTC. Your MAJCOM commanders and your wing commanders, they each get a few numbers to basically approve a package on the spot, guarantee somebody a slot, but they get a small window in which to do that. We're not involved in this. I mean, education isn't really involved at all, but we don't even, a lot of times we don't even hear about it. It might flow through TMT or so, however, MAJCOMs or direct reporting units communicate these short, fast calls. They might put it out to the commander at the 11th hour, and if the commander doesn't know, one, you're interested, and two, how far along you are, then they're going to just turn in a negative RSV, you know, a negative response. We don't have anybody. And a lot of times I've seen the folks that get those work on the MAJCOM staff or work on the wing staff, not because they're any better, not because they work closer to the flagpole, but simply because the leaders that make those decisions already know about these people and they know what's going on. Okay, fair enough? Just want to set the stage. All right, so let's get started on the slides. The slides are, again, intended to give you kind of a menu or a flavor on some of the different programs. Okay? And you'll see some basic eligibility or non-eligibility factors. And I think that would be important for you to realize. Okay. Every good briefing is going to have an overview, so here's your overview. Okay, we'll be able to talk a little bit more intelligently on the top half, but when we get down towards the medical and some JAG, you know, we can just introduce you to the links, and later we can introduce you to a mentor that we have on the base listed that may not show up here today. Fair enough? All right. Well, let me also say something here. No one commissioning program is the same. It's split up into two different types. One that helps you earn a degree, your ROTCs, and the Air Force Academy, and one where you already have a degree, right? So it's not a degree granting program. It's a kind of a direct deployment through OTS. So I just want to because they're different. So when we start talking about those, some are designed to help you get a degree. Some that ship has already sailed, you apply with a degree. All right. The Air Force Academy. We start with this one because this is the shortest time frame and the very limiting program. It's important to understand. We give the same briefing to FTAC and to the Airman Leadership School classes for our young ones. Okay? And you understand why that's important. And you could read the slides. In my day as a senior enlisted leader, we would have folks that would give up custody of children so they could apply. Anyways, everybody has to make their own decisions. The most important thing here is what? It's that link on the bottom. Okay. Still lead, it's just walking you through what the site looks like. There's a particular, through admissions, there is a very particular spot for enlisted airmen because we get carved out a certain amount of slots to entrance into the academy every single year, okay? And your process is a little different than somebody off the streets. Are either one of you academy grads?
No, but I have two prior friends that are at the academy right now.
So if any of you know, like when I was in high school, I went to high school in Colorado Springs, so the home of the academy. But you know, you had to get letters from congressmen. I mean, you had to get some serious sponsorship, do all kinds of things. You don't do that when you're enlisted. You know, Those letters from congressmen now are letters from the officers appointed over you. Fair enough? And so it's a different admissions process, and that's why you want to go to the Enlisted Airman tab. Again, it's just a look at what the site looks like. The tab is the most important part. At some points, you'll need to talk to an ALO, a admissions liaison officer. That changes as people PCS, but we've got the list, and so if you're ready now or will be ready, you can contact us and find out who the ALO is. Just showing you what's available out there pertaining to lead. Okay, ROTC. Like the Academy, Academy is a degree granting program, ROTC as well. You start in with a certain amount of credits and you show your academic ability through GPA and things like that. But you got to be careful because you can't have too far into your degree, okay? So you could see the slides as well. ASCP, SOAR, and POC and ERP are all ROTC, but they have little shred outs or subsets on how you get there and how you apply. Typically speaking, if you're going to go after a commission through ROTC, you're separating from the Air Force, okay? If you apply while you're in through one of the programs, you get the application and everything and you're already approved, and then you separate and you go to school, okay? There used to be some programs in the past, AECP, Bootstrap, to where you're allowed to go through ROTC while you're still in. Those programs are not funded. We didn't take it off the slides yet because they didn't take it out of the AFI, but they're just not funded and haven't been for quite a while. Just take a look at the normal deadline. So I know I looked at a package yesterday for a guy that's getting ready to turn his in because 15th of October. So one of the takeaways from the sites, don't bank on anything on the slide, bank on what's on the site. We're going to tell you, we're giving you snapshots in time, but go to the link. Again, we're going to give you a a picture of their site. Same thing, there's a different process for enlisted, prior enlisted, if you will, to apply. What you think about all these, as you look at the slide, what are you doing to separate yourself? It doesn't mean you're stepping on folks. It doesn't mean you're backstabbing anybody, but what are you doing to separate yourself? It should start with, if you're brand new, it should start with your CDCs. How fast, how well did you complete your CDCs? How fast, how well did you get upgraded? How valuable are you making yourself to your unit of assignment, right? Did you or did you not get BTZ? Because that's a quality indicator that you've separated yourself. Okay, below the zone promotion to senior airman is what BTZ is. Yes, sir.
Is there an age requirement for ROTC as well?
There is. Let me see if we can back up and see on the general slide. Each program's different. There is a difference in age requirements. Let's see if it's on the next slide. I know the POC ERP is more generous on age, but if you'll write me an email, I'll be happy to help you find that. More importantly, go to the site. But if you can't find it, let me know and I'll get you an answer to that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought we had it on. Let me just go forward once. Negative, not yet. That's okay. Don't want to pass a few things up here. If you already have a bachelor's, regardless of your GPA, ROTC is not the right program. OTS becomes the right program. Okay. Now, let's just say you didn't do too well on GPA. You didn't meet the minimum for your bachelor's, and folks are thinking, well, I'll go get my master's and raise my GPA. It doesn't work like that. The GPA is based on your GPA for your bachelor's. Okay? Now, there are some offsets and waivers at times. And so you might be able to articulate through, let's just say that you don't have a good GPA and they waive it, or it's just low, because there are eligible GPAs and then there are marketable GPAs. If you just meet the bare minimum, then you're eligible, but I don't know how marketable is. Then it would depend on the needs of the Air Force, what type of degree you have, and whether that fits. And so sometimes you can then use your transcripts and your resume, if you will, for your master's that you've increased, and that's where your commander is going to kind of write, is going to head that perceived weakness off and say, hey, the bachelor's was before they got here, like most of us, they didn't know how serious a GPA was, and now that they're here. So it just sets up a case to where the commander's letter or your own letter, you can use your furthering GPA and your graduate degree for that far to help articulate that those previous scores or GPA is not indicative of who I am now. And of course, then you want to score high on the AFOQT to kind of put your money where your mouth is to make that claim. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second as well. Okay, so you go to ROTC. You find a school that either has an ROTC debt, a detachment, or you find a school that has one in the same town. So it's called a cross city, cross town, and so you have to have an agreement between the ROTC debt at this school and the school you happen to be going to. So there is some coordination involved. Okay, but for ROTC, you have to be a member of a debt. That's the whole point of ROTC. Okay? And again, I'll make these slides available, but talk to these people. Okay, TFOT is OTS. So we're talking OTS now. We're moving into, you already have your degree or you're real close. You can apply without being done, but you have to do an extra form where the school says, members got, a great standing. We expect them to graduate. They're due to graduate in X amount of time. That's basically the extra form involved. Or you have your degree done and you have your transcripts as part of your package. Okay, you're definitely you need to be in depth in this site. Before you do anything, you should dig deep in this site and take a look at the criteria, the products, and then the order in which you submit a package. Folks, it's all important. You pay attention to detail. So if it says there's 5 tabs and put X in each tab, then you better make sure that you follow those tabs and you do it in exactly the order. That might be the first sorting out of all the packages that come in. If you don't submit it in the right order, they may just make you ineligible from the get-go. They're weeding down the packages to give the board a workable number. So you need to pay attention to detail. AFOQT, it's Air Force Officer Qualification Test. You take that at the education office. You're only allowed 2 tests normally. You can waive and get a 3rd test done. Okay, but that takes a waiver. All right. Now, owning the education office and owning all the test functions on base, we get this all the time. We get this, well, I need to apply and I haven't taken the test. Well, too bad, too sad. It's like the plane. The plane left. You didn't manage your time well. So if you're getting close and need the AFOQT, check in with wherever education office you're at and find out what their testing schedule is. Ours is once a quarter, and we just did one. And we actually did it out of cycle because of COVID, the inability to offer it for a little while, and so we did a couple extra. But we typically do it once a quarter. We just did it. So we expect to do it again in November or December. Okay, so that's the normal time. There's really no such thing as an emergency. I have to take the test. Now, if you are one of the wing commander's SOAR applicants or something like that, and the wing commander wants to get you in, then typically we're going to make that an out-of-cycle test request, and we're going to take care of that request from the wing commander or his or her staff. Okay? Any questions on this slide? Okay, a few more photos, just the screenshots. You definitely want to take a look at, they have a spot on here for what's hot, new things, whether they're accepting waivers, what they previously said they would not, or they're not accepting waivers when all of their advertisement says they do, whether they cancel a board or whether they plus up and they add a board. All this is Air Force needs. And so if the Air Force, they cut too many officers or they have a program enlargement, you know, all of a sudden they need more because they've enhanced the program. If you're watching what our new Chief of Staff is saying, he's talking about maybe re-looking at where our manpower is and putting them where they need to be. And so you never know if that's going to drive an increase in boards, but maybe in some specific areas. This is where you're going to get the information. Okay? We are obviously in USAFE, so we have our own support, if you will. But if you can't find it on here, ask me, and we'll go to the program managers at AFPC and find out where or who it is that you need to talk with. This is just a screenshot of how the board schedule looks on their site. We know that we're worked our way out of this one. So you have board dates, and you might have, let's just say you have waivers, then you're going to have a waiver cutoff before the board. So you submit the waivers before, and they're going to give you a green light to apply or not apply. And so you just got to pay attention to these suspenses and kind of reverse engineer your plan to meet your board date. Okay, and you don't want to wait for the last one. You know, it's like, you know, I'm going to use an analogy. It's like saying that we're not going to have let's assume you're married, and your spouse is talking, you say, you're not going to have children until you're financially ready. Well, folks, that normally, for most folks, that means you're not going to have children then, because you never truly feel financially ready. And so it's the same thing here. You don't want to wait until, you know, you're close to the age and all that and say, okay, now I'm going to apply because I feel ready. You can apply for a commission as many times as you want. You have to be within the age requirement. You just can't take the AFOQT more than twice or a third waiverable. Fair enough? All right, so I've heard some of the mentors say, hey, don't wait, submit it, get some feedback. And we've had a few that said, I submitted it early, I really thought my next year is going to be stronger, and I got picked up. So if you've got the things done, submit it. Now, part of the package for OTS is you have to talk about what type of career fields you want to apply for. That doesn't mean they're going to match it, but they want part of the package is to tell them. And so you can take a look at the different career fields out there. Fair enough? Now, there's rated boards. You may have seen the verbiage or picked up on, and non-rated boards. Does anybody know the difference or not know the difference, more importantly? Do you know the difference? Okay, rated are typically your pilots, your navigators, battle managers, and so there's 5 or 6 jobs that are rated. Everything else is non-rated. So you have to apply for the right board, and you have to line up on your Air Force Form 56, your application. If you're applying for a rated officer billet, then you need to put a rated job down there in your desired jobs, and then you're going to cater your package to the jobs in which you're applying for. That second paragraph is vitally important. If you're early on and OTS is your vehicle, GPA matters. Fight each class for the best GPA that you can get. Okay? When you schedule yourself to take the AFOQT, study for it. Fight for the best score that you can get. Again, there's a difference between eligible scores and marketable scores. Everything is an indicator. If you're following the herd, you're part of the herd, or you're leading the herd. The stronger packages are those that are going to communicate that although I've been a member of the herd, I'm leading the herd. And you articulate that through being above average on the different criteria in which you're submitting against. Now, you'll see on their site, it says you're not allowed to call them, that the education office must be the only one to call. They haven't removed it off their sites, but the new program coordinator says that's horse dung. We will accept calls. It doesn't have to be the education office. Okay? So if you see that for OTS, now I can only speak on that page, you can contact them. Okay, this is Schlec O and Schlec P. This is a command call, right? It comes through your command through SharePoint or some way. It gets down to the organizations, and typically it's a short turnaround tasker. The Schlec O is the OTS, so you already have the degree. It'd be no different. You're working on your OTS package, right? You're going for that, so you've met the criteria. You're eligible. The difference in this and applying for OTS is if you're selected by your commander, you've got a seat. You don't have to go through the selection process at AFPC with all the other folks on that particular board. You're already selected. So you're going to get a class seat. Okay. Schlec A is the scholarship, is the ROTC. So they have one Schlec O call each year. They have one Schlec A call every year. Okay? This is where your commander needs to know you're working on it, you're about ready. You need to keep your commander in tune with where you're at, so when they see that call, they already know I have somebody. Unfortunately, sometimes it's easier to do a negative, send a negative response than it is to source it and get it done. Start to see some ages involved here, right? Now we're moving into medical. Okay, so there are many different medical sorts of programs. First one's NECP. You want to be a nurse. Okay, you can obviously see the slide. I want to key in on a particular area. If you don't have these prereqs, we can build you a goal, a prereq goal. That, when you use TA, you have to have a goal, right? Your CCF, a bachelor's, master's goal. It has to be approved, and then you can apply for classes against that goal. Well, these don't fit into a degree because they're prereqs. And typically, Air Force isn't going to pay for prereqs for anything, but they will for some of the medical programs for enlisted to officer programs. you just contact us. First, we're going to take a look at what you currently, come on in, sir, what you currently have and where you're at and what you need. And then we will build a particular goal. The only thing that we're going to require, since we're giving you more TA money and we're building a separate goal, we're going to want a note signed by your commander saying, yep, we're tracking, I'm going to be in support of, let's let the Air Force invest in the member and pay for some extra classes. That's as far as I'll go. That's where we really get involved as your education office to help you build the goal, you know, and secure the TA. Okay? What's funny about this is the use of Montgomery GIBL or other outside scholarship financial aid is not authorized. So you're going to ROTC for a nursing program, you just can't use some of the other funding sources. You see the parts in red, right? So you've got a window. Most folks hit E4 depending upon whether you came in with no or 1 or 2 stripes, a little bit different. But so really you have between 4 and 10 years. That's your window. And this, you see at times the MyPERS messages. So if you go into the Air Force portal and you Google NECP, you're going to get messages like this. You're not normally going to get the link to the NECP site. Use our slides. Now, I will tell you, the names will change. Most often the link and the phone numbers will not. Okay? It's important to understand. If you enter an NECP goal, I typically will coordinate with the POCs to make sure that the goal you're providing is solid. Okay? It's just a little assurances for me and for you that we're investing the money in the right area, taking the right path. BSc or Biomedical Sciences Core. There's 3 different programs. The first one, a lot of times when you go here to the local clinic and you make an appointment, you're seeing a PA. Okay, that's what IPAP is. It's the PA program. This to me would be the bee's knees. This to me would be the best program to do. But they all fall under the BSc. They all fall under this website or this link. And the starting points, eligibility, education requirements are different for each one. Again, we're showing you some screenshots. This so far is all the IPAP, or that's the PA. You have a separate one for the Army Baylor Doctorate of Physical Therapy. So you're going to have to just cruise and kind of work through the websites. SAT is required. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to take the SAT here, anywhere right now in USAFE. So you have to do that in the States. Okay, they closed all the Dante's test sites down, which test SAT and those. So this, we're slid into another program, still under BSc. So what's the prerequisite for a doctorate degree? What type of degree do you have to have? A master's. So just understand that. Okay, again, probably one of the most important slides when it comes to your BSc programs. They're going to ask you first if you've done some basic reading. And if you say yes, but then you're asking basic questions, should have been the reading, they're probably going to ask you to go back and do the reading. Education office will do the same thing on different programs. If you call us on SkillBridge, we're going to send you an information with links. We're going to ask you to read it. TA brief, if you have questions on TA, we're going to ask you to do the TA training. We're going to send you a talker. Time management just says that that's the way to go. Most questions will be answered. These offices are no different. We'll be happy to answer questions after you've taken this step. Their site's got contact info, and again, that's the most important thing. It's going to run you through the eligibility criteria and how to apply. Okay, they have a preparatory program. Here it just says you already have a bachelor's and you maintain a 3.2. A 3.2 is, it's your minimum required. Of course, we would challenge you to earn as high of a GPA as you can. You can't change the past. But if you have a 3.2 or 3.3, then you need to find other ways in your package to kind of set you apart. That could be the other, if it requires SAT or whatever else you study for these tests. More on the preparatory. Again, what's important are the links. I'm looking at the non-verbs. Anybody still on this slide? Lots of ways. If you want to take a picture of, this is the slide you're interested in, and want to take a picture of this, feel free to step up. And again, I'll send you the slides. We're being a bit redundant now, so. Again, the name is not as important as the address. Now we're into the MSc. You see there's a subtle difference. Before we went from BSc, BSc, right? Slid into the Uniformed Services University. And now we're moving into the Medical Services Corps. It's a whole nother category of jobs, and it's a different application process. We have mentors for both BSC as well as MSC on base. And I've got a mentor list. If they don't show up here today, we can give you those.
MSC's right here,
What's that?
sir. MSC.
MSC, okay. Thank you, sir.
And I think he's a BSC.
Okay,
No, he's a nurse.
okay. Judge advocates have their own program. And we do have an enlisted officer, if she's still here, that works at our current JAG. And she's been here at the previous, but we can get you a mentor there. Here it says earn a bachelor's degree. So they're going to send you to school. I don't know, I think I misread that. I think you earn a bachelor's degree, you take the LSAT, and then you apply. And then this is what it's going to do for you. Look at this bottom line. This is different than some of the others. Medical, you're still on active duty. JAG, you're still on active duty. ROTC, you're not. Okay, AFOQT. Talked about that a little bit. Whether you're here or at your next base, the education office, at least if you're on an Air Force base, the education office owns testing. The other services, I really can't tell you who owns testing, but if there's an abundance of Air Force personnel there, there's going to be somebody there to proctor that test. If not, you locate your closest Air Force base and get scheduled. We have folks coming here all the time from all over Europe. If you don't know who to write because she's getting ready to turn over and we've got somebody else, you just call the education office and we'll get you squared away. If you have a UTM in your squadron, which most squadrons do, you can ask them, how do I get in touch with the testing officials? Unit training manager for the sake of the slides. Okay. So between the education office, between Sergeant Ferguson, and most of you know Ferguson, if you've met him, you know him. He's a phenomenal career systems advisor, more important, a phenomenal senior NCO. But you have to maybe wear some earplugs because he's going to talk. He's going to talk loud. He's going to talk aggressive. But he's got a heart of gold. Okay, but between the two of us, we will get you squared away and get you the answer. We probably don't know the answers, but we know who to go to get the answers. Remember, I'm not in depth in this anymore. We don't really get staff to do that, but I'm going to follow the same links and phone numbers, and we keep notes. I would never lead you to somebody that I think is going to do you wrong as well, so you can check in with this to see if we've got a good point of contact. Because not everybody's the same on the other end of the phone, and we will learn from that. If you get chastised or abused on the other end of the phone, I'd like to know about it. Hopefully you know who you're talking to, and I'd like to know about it. Everybody has a chain of command and a boss. Okay? Now, if you haven't done what they asked you to do and you keep coming back at them, then they have every right to tell you to, hey, they're probably going to step up and get a little bit more aggressive with you. Remember, the controlling theme is, if you can't look at the link, and you can't figure it out, then you ought not apply. It sounds cold, but it's the way it is. When you make phone calls, let's stop here for a second. It just doesn't apply to commissioning, it applies to anything. You're applying for a job, you're applying for a program like at school. For the first time that you pick up that phone and you make a phone call, consider your interview started. Okay? If you don't know the questions to ask, if you fumble and flub over your words, if you're bad-mouthing somebody on the phone thinking the other end is your friend, your interview is started. Okay, you don't know who they are and where they fit into the process, but just consider every communication you have as part of your interview. And you're going to make or break your credibility. Scholarship boards, everything. Well, you're here. We're shifting out of our, we're moving into a web page and out of our Facebook. So we're going to be removing everything from Facebook. That's why it's being videoed here. It's going to go on our web page, right? That's the right, I'm the last one to talk about IT, but our web page, right? Okay. And so if you're deployed and you have buddies over there that need to watch a briefing and they can't attend one, obviously, well, just know that it's here at Aviano. Okay. Okay, I've already got you that. So you're not going to do the mentors yet. What we're going to do is we're going to give you, I'm going to invite the schools in to just tell you about their programs, so tell you how they can help you. And then we'll go on a quick break, and then we'll get the mentors all set up, and then we'll come back in and you'll learn more in the Q&A from them than you ever will me. Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question. I wanted to backtrack
Sure.
on one thing.
Yes.
The AFR OTC programs.
Yes.
It mentioned that upon graduation, ROTC candidates are competing for POC slots.
You're competing for OTS slots.
Yeah. So
Yes. It's not a guarantee, but I think every one of them in the chair will tell you that if you graduate your ROTC program and you don't have anything that's keeping you from becoming an officer of medical or a disciplinary, then you're going to get picked up for OTS.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. Is just if there's statistics on that, how likely it is, or if it's more of a gamble than a blessing.
I'm sure there is. If you want to email me that question, I'd be more than happy to source that answer. If they'll release it, but I'll surely ask the question. Okay? Cool. Any other questions before we take a quick break? Okay, it's let me call the colleges in quick and they'll introduce themselves. You're up. So we have 2 of our 3 schools present. Oklahoma University is not. They really can't help you much here because they are a graduate program here only. So you don't need graduate work, you need undergraduate work. Okay, so we'll start with Ambry Riddle. Come on up.
Hi everybody, how are you today?
I'm gonna stand next to you only because I got the mic, okay? So I'm not invading you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So-
My name is Vivian. I'm the campus director for Ambry Riddle Aeronautical University. Have any of y'all heard of Ambry Riddle before? No? Okay, well, I'm happy to tell you about it. So we're a STEM university, so that's science, technology, engineering, math, which means all of our degree programs are science-based. So we have things like aeronautics, technical management that will prepare you for careers in things like engineering, unmanned systems. Additionally, we have project management. We have logistics, supply chain. So if you have your CCAF done and you go with one of these programs, depending on what your transfer credit looks like, we will give you around 60 credits of transfer, which is ultimately half of a bachelor's degree, because a bachelor's degree is 120. So it's a great benefit. We have campuses all over the world, so wherever you go, wherever ed center you're assigned to, should have an Ambry Riddle staff, or you can take classes with us. All of our classes, none of you guys are interested in graduate programs. Is that what you said, Roy? I heard.
Well, the target audience
Eventually.
here is for undergrad, but there may be folks that already have their bachelor's, yes.
Perfect. Do any of y'all have your bachelor's already? Yes. So we have pretty much all the same things at the graduate level: aeronautics, aviation, business administration, project management, logistics, aerospace engineering is a master's program that we have. All of our classes, both graduate and undergraduate, are 9 weeks long. You can do classes online. You can do classes Eagle Vision Home, which is a live instructor streams to your home, and you meet usually 1 day a week. And then we have Eagle Vision Campus. Of course, with coronavirus restrictions, we've not been able to hold classes physically in the Ed Center, so we're sort of doing Eagle Vision Home for all of our classes right now. But just depending on your base and depending on what classes you need, we offer them in 3 different modalities. We accept federal financial aid, which is another great benefit. If you're an American taxpayer, you can apply for FAFSA, possibly get around $6,000 at the undergraduate level in grant money. So you can use that, of course, on top of your TA, because our textbooks are not free, so it's nice to have a little bit of grant money to help pay for books or any school-related costs. We accept transfer credit from CLEP and DSST testing. which is a great benefit to y'all here because it's free and you can study and get up to 9, depending on your CLEP, 9 credits. So we do accept that testing as well. And I believe that's pretty much Ambry Riddle in a nutshell. I think we're a pretty good school. I think our stuff is exciting. Our students are always coming up with new innovative projects and all involved in different programs. So we have a pretty big community here in Aviano. And if any of y'all have questions, we're over on Area 1 in the Education Center. Myself and my colleague Corey are there Monday through Friday around 8 to 5. Do y'all have questions for me now? Okay, well, thank you guys for your time.
And she's got some pamphlets and things out in the hallway on break. Well, okay, maybe not, but
I'll be there.
she'll be there.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not working.
Yes.
It's right in your eyes, right? Can't see anybody. Hi, my name is Liz. I'm a program coordinator with the University of Merlin Global Campus, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about us. We have over 90 programs. We begin with some certificates, undergraduate certificates. We have associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, graduate certificates, master's programs, all available here. We offer classes on site, hybrid, and online. On site is, at the moment, they're being offered via Zoom meetings, and many of you are probably familiar with Zoom at this point in time. But since the classes can't meet in the Education Centre, they're meeting in Zoom meetings. So if you sign up for a face-to-face class, if you're meeting Monday and Wednesday, instead of meeting at the Ed Centre, you log into your Zoom. You can speak with your professor and see all the other students in the class and interact that way. Our hybrid classes are half online, half face-to-face, so there's a little bit of online work as well as the one meeting a week rather than 2. And then we have the fully online classes as well. I have a schedule here that I'm going to pass out to you. These are the classes that are here in Aviano. The ones that have marked with a little red,
Actually, pass it to the next row.
the ones that are marked in red are the classes that will work for CCAF, because we do all the general education classes for CCAF. Each session we offer at least one class for each of the requirements of the general education, and we usually offer one of the management classes as well. This session, because our classes are being offered by Zoom, you have the advantage that you can actually enroll in any classes throughout the European theatre. It doesn't have to be in Aviano, so if there's not something on our schedule that you're interested in, but maybe they're offering it up in Germany because they have different professors up there, you can still log in from here and in the Zoom meeting, so you can still do a face-to-face type class at the moment. That's only while the COVID is going on and while we're doing Zoom. Once we go back to the regular offers classes in the Ed Centre, unfortunately you can only take the Aviano face-to-face ones unless you want to travel to Germany. So what else do I have to tell you? Yes, our office is back in the Ed Centre. We're open again, physical office, but we're working short staffed because of the COVID restrictions. So we are asking that if you come to see us in the office, please schedule an appointment. Just call us and make an appointment before. We are taking walk-ins, but we're afraid that if too many walk-ins come together, you may have to wait outside for a while. So it really is better if you can call us beforehand and just schedule an appointment. So at UMGC, we also run the test centre where you can do CLEP Dantes, Pearson VUE, and many other tests as well. A lot of the students come and take these tests for their CCF as well as for their bachelor's degree as well. We will accept up to 60 credits of transfer from testing and up to 90 credits of transfer from any other kind of transfer credit that would include your CCAF. So you can apply to UMUC as a consortium student, which is working on a military program like your CCAF or the NECP program or one of those. If you apply as a consortium student, you don't have to send us any transcripts, you don't have to pay the $50 application fee, and you can just take your classes and transfer the credit elsewhere. If you apply as a degree-seeking student, you will get credit for your military career, what you've done with your CCAF, and we'll try and give you as much credit as possible for that, and that will go towards your bachelor's degree. If you want to know how much credit you possibly have, we can do what's called a FAST plan, which is an unofficial evaluation. You don't have to be a student to do this. It takes about 24 hours. All you have to do is provide us with unofficial transcripts. So if everything that you have is showing in your CCF progress report, that would be a perfect thing to bring to us. We'll submit the FAST plan for whatever degree you want. We can do it for more than one degree. If you're undecided between a bachelor's degree in business administration and management, we can do both of the degree plans up for you. You can meet with the academic advisor or one of us in the office and we can go over that. It'll show you what credit you have in transfer, where would go in your degree and what you still have left to do. There's no commitment on that. If you don't like what you can see, that's fine, you can change. but we can certainly give you some options, and at least you can look at your degree plan and see what you have ahead of you if you want to go with the degree. What else are we going to tell you? Let me see. Graduate programs, we do have graduate programs as well. All our graduate programs at the moment are only online, unfortunately. But if there's enough interest within the community, we can offer them face-to-face as well. Any questions? No? Okay.
Well, let me give a sales pitch then for all of our universities on base, regardless of where they're at and what schools. If they're underperforming, if they are lying and cheat and steal from you, well, then we're going to know about it, and we're their core, and they will be removed from the base. And so we don't typically have that problem. So really, the flip side of that is if they occupy space on base, we have a good relationship, they have good credibility, their accreditation is solid, and it's very important. And you have another advocate because you can come to me if you don't feel like they're doing well. They do well for us, and I don't really get any complaints. But just know that around the world, if they're on a base, whether it's Navy, Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, probably the Coast Guard, I don't know, I've never been on a Coast Guard base, you're going to have a parent contract corps, usually education or fleet management or whatever the office is, depending upon the service. So you're in good hands is what I want to say. One of the biggest things about all the schools out there online, and there are many, and I'm not bad-mouthing any particular one, but a lot of them are very predatory in nature. They make you promises. They're good about recruiting. They're poor with shepherding. They don't take care of you once you get in. But when you go on base, you know that you have a staff present that will be held accountable if they lie, cheat, and steal. Again, we don't have any problems here at all, as well as with OU. Okay?
I'm going to pass out these. These are the Cleppendantes equivalent, the tests that are offered here in the Ed Centre. And then there's just one more thing I'd like to mention before I leave you, and that is just to tell you about our unit classes. So a unit class is where a group of people come together and they want to take it usually from the same unit. The request can come from a student, but it can also come from a supervisor. And it's where you want to take a class at a time that works for you guys. We do it a lot with the people who work shift work, for example, security forces and the fire department. We do it with any unit. We've done it with the hospital as well. If you want a particular class, it could be something like an Italian class, or it could be any class for your CCAF, or any other class that you have a particular interest in. We ask that you have at least 12 students, interested students, but we need 9 for the class to go. And we can set it up at a time and have the class at the location that you want, at the times that work for you. We've got very creative with that. We've had some classes where they meet 1 week in the morning, the next week in the afternoon, 1 week on a Monday, next week on a Wednesday. And so if whatever your schedule is, we can work it for you. So there's really no excuse not to be taking classes. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to take a break. After the break, I'll be available for questions during the break, but after the break, for sure, come back in and be set up different. That whole time is dedicated to you asking the mentors, and so they'll introduce themselves, and they'll introduce the programs in which they represent. Okay? All right, thanks. Take care. Welcome our mentors. We sure thank you for taking the time out. They represent different areas, so I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves and how they got a commission. And that gives you a perspective on the types of questions to ask. So this is how it's going to work. If you want to ask a question, just raise your hand so I can get you the mic. Same thing as a commander's call, right? Because it is being videoed. So ask your question into the mic, and then whoever is going to take it, I'll take the microphone back and pass it off. Fair enough? Okay, so ma'am, we'll start with you.
Hello, I'm Captain Gebele, and I was enlisted in active guard and then commissioned through OTS as a medical service corps officer. And I've been an officer now for almost 7 years and total 13 years in the military. Hi, I'm Captain Bilog. I was active duty enlisted for about 15 years. I've been in for 21. I commissioned through the NECP program to be a nurse. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Ma'am, when you did the NECP, did you go through ROTC then in that program, or did you go through OTS eventually?
I went through, well, it's an ROTC program for 2 years that you just go to school, and then we commission and go through COT versus OTS.
Hello, Captain Dominique Lewis. I commissioned through ROTC. A little different from the folks up here. I didn't cross E to O, but can speak to any of the ROTC experiences. I've been in about 6.5 years right now, and I'm a force support officer.
Captain Alex Rogan. I was prior enlisted. I did 6.5 enlisted, and then I'm in my 3rd year now as an officer. I'm a medical service corps officer, hospital administrator, along with Captain Gebele over there. And I did the OTS route from enlisted to officer, and so it's TFOT now. So commissioned officer training doesn't exist any longer. So it's all one thing now. So.
I am Justin Hannaford. I'm an aerospace physiologist, super small career field, but the best career field in the Air Force by far, because I get to fly on whatever is at the base that I'm at, so it's a pretty good gig, and you get paid to do it, so that's awesome. But I was prior enlisted as an aerospace physiology technician before for about 14 years, and then crossed over in 2014, so about 7 years ago. And so mine was a direct commission, and so basically with the way that aerospace physiology works is once you finish your education, you turn in your application, you get selected. So I went from being a tech sergeant one day to a first lieutenant the very next day, so it was a pretty good gig, and then just drove down to Maxwell and went through OTS. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Folks, we're open for questions. I know you have questions. We didn't bring them here for nothing. How many of you had to rely upon your commander to authorize or sign a package? Okay, so we'll give you a chance to answer it as what were they looking for and how'd that initial interview or process go? Just whoever wants to take.
So like Chief said before, your commander basically is kind of that first step in getting a commission, right? And so unless you have that relationship established and that support, because they know that you are Sierra Hotel and you're willing to be able to take care of any program, take care of the people, and manage everything all at one time, you're not going to be as successful as what you would without their support, right? And so leaning on your senior enlisted, right, your flight chief, your squadron superintendent, and then allowing them to help you meet with the commander and get you in front of them and give you opportunities to run programs and to manage people. That's really kind of the first step, right? Because a lot of commissioning programs require wing level leadership, so basically General Bailey, as far as an endorsement. And so General Bailey is not going to endorse you if you don't know your squadron commander. So that's kind of the first step is building that relationship and earning that trust that you deserve as a superior performer.
Great, thanks. We can pass it down.
Yeah.
We can also add or include what were maybe the biggest challenges in the application process, hurdles, whatever you want to share.
Okay. And so just to add on, basically taking a personal aspect to your application is important. So if you own it, then other people will want to help you. So it's a simple thing of communicating to your supervisor what you want. If you start off young in the Air Force and it becomes habit, with each supervisor, they're going to understand what you want with your career. Because to them, that means you care, so they're going to care about your career as well. If you don't communicate that, they're not going to know that. For me, basically, my commander had to endorse it, but then I also had to, because I went from security forces to medical, so I had to get an administrator and a whole separate commander's approval. So that was like cross communication and also a little bit of effort on my part. The hurdles, that's a hurdle for sure, crossing over from different type of career fields, but it's also how much do you want it, how much you're willing to learn, and do you have that aptitude? And the leadership ability, you hit it on the nail, like going to booster clubs, being a part of something to where you're trying to work above a grade or you want to actually lead prior to being placed in that position. So seeking out those opportunities is more important than anything. So remember communication though.
So for me, I did the same. I went from a career field that was not medical to a medical career field. So I did have to do interviews with the chief nurse and those people who I hadn't worked with previously. So just practicing, interviewing, if that's something that you're, wanting to do is switch the type of career that you do. For me, it was medical. So that, and then, like you said, leadership is a big deal. So just, show that you can lead, because that's something that they're really looking for as an officer, that you can do that and make those hard decisions. Also, I would just venture to say, foot stomping what they said about the squadron commander. If they know you, because they're going to be writing letters of recommendation and things like that, and kind of like pushing those up. So you want to get those higher leadership letters of recommendation. So if your squadron commander knows you, he can advocate for you to the group commander and so on. So just, keeping those things in mind. I had to do a lot of school before I was able to even apply to the program. So knowing which classes, like for me, the science classes were a really big deal, and they really looked at that hard. Knowing which classes to put all of your effort versus some others where they may not really look. You can pass this one, but if you don't get an A or B on this one, that kind of thing. So just, know where you're going and what to focus on as far as that's concerned. And I had to do 2 years of school before I could even apply to do this program, and then do 2 more. So. I think, as they said, I had to do 2 leadership as well. I had an interview, and my enlisted commander had to sign off. And I know both of them were looking for my leadership through my enlisted time. Programs like PTL and things like that I got involved in at the squadron and group levels, and then definitely communication. I know in our interview with our MSc, the senior MSc, they were looking at how we wrote an essay. So they gave you 10 minutes and told you to write, and then they would look at that as part of your interview to see how you communicate and making sure that you were able to do that effectively. Like Vale said, leadership, getting involved, and then making sure that your commanders know who you are and what you want. I think it's the most important thing. And then definitely being committed. The application process is long, and if you're going to run into issues, and you have to be willing to push through that, because I think it was probably one of the harder things I've done in the military is putting that package together.
It's not easy, is it? It's not as simple. I know I shared with you the Air Force's feeling on that, but that is your first test. So I want to address something when it comes to let's go OTS or TFOT real quick. Air Force Form 56 is the workhorse of your application. It really is. And you're going to be, so for OTS, the 56 is going to give you the ability to articulate why you want to be an officer. It's going to give your commander the ability to write your recommendation right within this form. So it's got a data block, much like an EPR. It just allows them to communicate. And then you're allowed, at least that's why you always want to check the latest link, but you're allowed 1 more letter, right? So some people will have the commander fill in the 56 and then have the commander write the additional letter. Don't do that. You're missing an opportunity for another level, and typically it's okay to ask, that your wing commander sign it. But all along the process, you are writing the draft. Now, I don't know how many of you kind of write your own EPR, your own 1206s. The supervisors ask for input. It's no different here. You're writing the draft. They'll finish it, they'll pretty it up, but you need to be prepared to write the draft. Okay? On your letter, I just looked at one yesterday. On your letter, make sure you can articulate or tie in the tie in the things you do, which in many cases will be very technical kind of work, to leadership and decision making. That's what they're looking for. So be able to tie it in. Okay? Each of your organizations throughout your chain have some great writers. And so you might need to connect with that great writer. I connected with one, different circumstance, and all it took was nachos and beer at the local Barron's Saloon. And that guy would help me out, and so it was worth nachos and beer to me. and that allowed me to write some better resumes and things like that because he had the skill set. Okay? So, questions? All right. Hoorah. Finally, you win. There you go.
So for everyone that was prior enlisted, was it difficult to switch your mindset from prior enlisted to being officer, as well as whenever you're doing your package or whatever, if you keep striving for it, how long did the process take till you're officially like an officer?
Okay. Okay.
So for the first part of your question, yes. And I think that's just something that'll always be, it's basic training that's just ingrained in you. So I think changing your mindset from being enlisted and being technical to being an officer and being a leader, because in my career field, we aren't doing the job. We are leading the people doing the job. It's still a daily struggle, and I have to remind myself that because I don't want to be a micromanager. I don't want to be constantly trying to do what my enlisted are doing. But yes, I think that's definitely a struggle. And then for the second part of it, I think I worked it a year and a half, almost 2-year process from the time that I started working on it until the time I was able to commission. So the package took about 6 to 8 months just because I had to have, I had 3 colonels write my letters of recommendation, and I had to take the GMAT because for our career field, we have to take the GMAT as part of our application. And just all of that and studying and writing my letters just took quite a while, and then actually finding out. So you submit in July, I think we submit, and then you don't get your board results until October, and then you have to wait to commission after that. So it's quite a long process.
So I would say every day I struggle with not being enlisted in my mind because, like Captain Gebele said, it's the first introduction you have to the military. But you have to learn to trust your team because sometimes, usually, when you're going to put yourself in a leadership position, it's because you're really good at what you do. And so you understand the technical knowledge, you understand doing the paperwork, you understand the dedication it takes, maybe a couple long hours or just being very effective driving through the work for the day-to-day monotony, and you can finish a task. And that's important with being an officer. Seeing projects through from beginning to end is probably what we do more than anything, is ensuring that you get the mission done. So having that background does help, but then it is important not to be a micromanager because the first thing that your NCOs are going to say are, Lieutenant, you're stepping on my toes, because I got that briefing really quick. So I had to step back and say, okay, hey, I'm going to trust my team, give them the direction, and then keep them on the course. So, but you learn it as you go. But a quick thing for everyone to think about if you really want to commission is if you want to go OTS, that means that you're ready to be an officer now. So it's, hey, okay, yeah, there's growing pains, but how are you an officer now? Just that you're wearing stripes. Now, if you're going to ROTC, they're going to give you a lot more background and time, and you're going to get more training in that way. And I'm pretty sure Captain Lewis can talk on that, but you'll have more time to get groomed. But OTS, it's really quick. You're going to get your training within 9 to 10 weeks, and then you're going to be out in the field, and you're going to be learning people, or leading people. And then the second half of your question is, for me, it was close to about 2 years as well, but that's because initially I had actually learned about MSC in a briefing like this when I was a staff sergeant, and I had to actually seek out more resources because at the base I was at, there wasn't an MTF. There wasn't a hospital. So I had to go to a different base to find that hospital administrator and find these people and get that information. So that took me about 6 months to get through that, and then building my package took me a year. Like, I would say the week before it was due, it was completed. And then I had to go through interview process, all that other stuff. And then I waited another year to commission. So I got selected, and then it was about 2 weeks prior to me going to OTS that I became an officer. So usually when you get it, sometimes you go quick or sometimes you wait a while. But the whole process of it, once you get there, it's worth it.
Okay. Coming to you. Go right here.
Hello, my name is Staff Sergeant Schultz. So I just had a quick question. Who actually went through AFROTC for their degree? Did anybody spend time like being separated from enlisted, going back to school? No? Okay. So a second question I had was actually for you, sir. So it sounds like, if I'm following correctly, you got to do your job and then study the education side in regards to what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Would you say that that helped or hindered you staying focused in what you did, not having to go from, working on as a security forces person one day to trying to do night classes, studying medical, not having to flip that switch, or did it become draining and tiring doing the same thing all day?
All right, so for those that have done a bachelor's and a master's program, right, there's nothing that's not draining about that, okay? So a master's is one of the most painful things you'll ever have to endure in your life, period. Doesn't matter what it is. I will say that being in aerospace physiology and working on like a human factors, so somewhat physiology related degree, was easier. And it also, there was multiple times that I killed two birds with one stone, because somebody in the wing wanted some information, and my flight commander and flight chief knowing me and my squadron commander knowing me, they're like, oh, that dude's in a human factors program, so if the squadron wants to know X, then let's hand it off to him. And there were multiple times that I ended up writing papers for school that also worked out for my job, right? But was it draining? Yes. I also had a one-year-old at the time. I was also a flight chief at the time. So there's nothing easy about going to school while on active duty. But once you build that regimen and you have a routine in life, it goes by faster than you can imagine. So like, it's just really just buckling down. No matter where you're stationed, there's never a good time for school. There's never a good time for kids. There's never a good time for any of these life things, right? But the sooner that you, at least with the education thing, because I'm not telling you guys to go get pregnant today, but you just get your education done, right? So there is no good time for that. One thing that I do want to kind of piggyback on what Lieutenant Rogan and Captain Gebele, Lieutenant Rogan, Captain Rogan, recent. So Captain Rogan, Captain Gebele said, the biggest piece of advice that I would give to anybody trying to commission is find yourself two champions. That first champion that you need is basically like your mentor. So somebody that has one or two more stripes than you, that's going to give you honest and valid feedback all the time. They're not going to just give you attaboys and attagirls. They're not going to tell you how great you are. They're going to tell you what you can do to improve. That's the first thing that you need in your career, because that person is going to make you better every single day. And then that second champion is whoever's in that career field that you have a desire to become commissioned in, find somebody in that career field and fly under their wing for a little bit, because that's going to tell you a couple things. That's going to tell you if you like that AFSC, and then you're actually going to see what the job is, because I think there's a lot of times where, I know when I was enlisted, I assumed what like an MSC did, when in reality I had no idea. And so find those two people here at Aviano and spend as much time as you possibly can with those people. And it's going to help you out a lot, because especially trying to navigate the commissioning process, like they said, it took, 1.5, 2, took me 3 years. It takes a long time. But if you have that champion that's going to help you out, they're going to be able to expedite that process and help you actually meet those requirements a lot easier than you just trying to navigate on yourself or trying to rely on the education center. There was a lot of things I'd go to the education center and they're like, we just don't know, right? They can't have all the answers. So find somebody that's actually done that program before, done that AFSC, and that'll help you out a lot.
And all these are mentors, and so they'll be more than happy to answer questions after this, one-on-one, answer emails, things like that. We had some ROTC graduates, right? I know we had one. You came in straight to ROC, but you were in class with prior enlisted folks, right? In Adet?
Yes, so
So just tell us a little bit about ROTC life, and maybe if they had struggles and whatever.
So ROTC, a little bit different, and Captain Rogan hit on it. Like, you go to OTS, it's quick. You go through that process. ROTC 3 or 4 year program. You get time to adjust to life, learning the life in the military, and still being a student, balancing life and things like that. The biggest thing with ROTC, it's like keeping up your grades, keeping up with the leadership responsibilities and activities. Whereas when you're enlisted, there's opportunities on base to get involved. In ROTC, they want you to get involved in like honor guard or things like that. So you can show, okay, I can lead this group of people. I can get involved in something on the campus, and my cadre can vouch for me. So through that process, after your sophomore year, you go through field training. That field training piece, it's like a mini basic training, and then after that, if you pass the mini basic training piece, you get contracted and you keep it up. So a little bit different in that you have to learn how to balance the military, student life, and your school. So.
Ma'am, did the prior enlisted folks have to go to field training that early, or did they bypass that?
No, they went through field training as well.
Same, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else want to approach that subject at all? Okay, questions? All right. Just talk through my.
So far as the AFOQT, was it easy or was it hard when you guys took it? Because I hear like horror stories and I'm like nervous to take it.
Who took it? I didn't take it.
You want to not take the AFOQT, but I missed it.
I took it though.
So I didn't think the AFOQT was anything super insurmountable. There are certain things that they focus on based on your career field. So like for me, the flight portion was useless. So I didn't, do anything. I mean, it didn't really count. It didn't count towards my scores for my package. So I wouldn't worry about if you aren't, going that route to be a pilot. Then don't freak out and be like, oh my gosh, I have to study all this pilot stuff.
Did that affect your qualitative score?
It doesn't. They remove it if you're not going to a flight career field. Yeah. So for me, it didn't at all. I tried anyway, but I honestly don't remember what I got there, but I was like, it doesn't matter. But I just studied kind of the same you would for like an ACT or one of those basic tests. It's kind of like one of those all-encompassing tests that cover, like math, science, like all of the things. So you can check out an AFOQT study guide, which is what I did at my base library. And I just studied that, and you can like study online. They have them online, so that's what I did. I don't think I did it for more than a few weeks. And then I just went and took the test. And you can take it more than once. I think you can take it up to 2 times.
Twice and a third with a waiver.
Right. But I took it the once and I got what I needed, so I didn't need to take it again. Just brush up on your, I would say, your language, like verbal skills, like your language knowledge. That was one of the big ones that they had in there, that you're like, what is this word? But yeah.
So comprehension.
Yeah, language comprehension, reading comprehension, that kind of thing was a big thing. And then I just wanted to say I was attached to an AFROTC program, but I didn't go to AFROTC, if that makes sense. So like when I was in NECP, I was attached to the DET, but I didn't attend any ROTC classes or do anything with them unless it was a break. And then I was like kind of like working in the DET on my time off. So what I did was I remained active duty as a tech sergeant, and I just went to school for 2 years, and that was my duty station, and that was my assignment. And then once I graduated, I commissioned. So that's kind of how that went for me. Do you have anything for
the test?
So for me, I'm not the best test taker in the world. So I was nervous before I took it. Took about a month to study, and there are so many resources out there. I like taking the practice tests. There's so many practice tests online. We also had like a study group, so I did flashcards, things like that. But the 2 times in your career, don't get hung up. Like, I know a lot of people who'll take it once and they're like, I'm not really happy with my score, but you passed. It sounds kind of bad to say, but I wouldn't really get hung up on that because the Air Force is looking at the whole person concept. So if you're not going into a rated field, then I'd say it'd be okay.
I kind of look at it like just get a seat at the table, so
Yeah.
qualify. Biggest thing is qualify to minimum.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Did you have anything or? Okay.
So I will tell you this, if you take the AFLQT, if you take it multiple times, it's not whatever scores the best, it's the latest test score that you took that counts. Okay, so just understand that. Okay, anybody else got questions? All right.
Kind of backtracking on what you said earlier about finding a champion. Are there any programs that we have that we can like kind of shadow an officer for a day or anything, just to kind of see like what you guys do on a day-to-day? Like for me, like I want to be a pilot, but I'm really curious, what do you do when you're on the ground? You know, obviously you're not in an airplane all the time. So I don't know if we have any programs that.
Yeah, so as far as the champion thing, there's not an official program.
Not at this base.
Not at this base. So it's really about just finding somebody that knows somebody. But every base is pretty small. Whenever you talk about personnel, right? We're all in a small town. So like, I'll give you my name after this and give you my email address. Reach out to me, like if you want to go over to any of the op squadrons, if you want to hang up with the Helo pilots or the Viper pilots or whatever you want to do, hit me up. So it's just a matter about like making connection and just hanging out with those folks. I can tell you. Yeah. How do you know when a fighter pilot's in the room? You automatically know because they're going to tell you, right? So they love talking about that stuff. So like, at no point would you ever go into like, I mean, how many of you guys love your job? Hopefully a couple. Maybe that's why you guys are here, because you don't love your job. I don't know. But a majority, like I can tell you probably everybody sitting up here in this row and a majority of folks around the wing, like if you just walk into a shop and you're like, hey, I'd like to learn about what you do, they're going to be like, sweet, check it out. This is what I do. Same thing in the fighter squadrons or in the Helo squadron, or even with the PJs or whatever. These folks are super happy to explain like what they did to get there, what they do on a daily basis. So don't be shy. Don't think stranger danger. Like unless you're walking in maybe the cop shack or something like that, maybe you might get held up or something. But for the most part, reach out to us. Reach out to somebody that you know. If you have a friend that's a CGO or somebody that you work with that's a CGO, just reach out to them and they'll reach out to the CGOC and find a connection for you. So it's easier than you think. But for you, just hit me up after this. Yep.
One thing to just realize is there's not a lot of officers, so usually someone knows someone. Like we all relatively know each other, and we all don't work right next to each other, just because of that small interaction. Like we met through a CGOC thing, and then we were at some form of instructional training at one point. So there's not a lot of officers, so usually someone knows someone, and it's easy to get someone connected with you.
Anybody else? Last call.
Anybody interested in being an MSc?
Can you talk about MSc, sir?
Let's let him ask his question, and then we're going to cue that up. Or were you just bailing me out?
No, sir. All right, so what are some things that you guys like do throughout your daily life that like just keep you motivated and just keep you going, you know? And then also like when you guys were barely starting the process, like what was one of the things that really stood out, you know, like filling out those packets? I hear you guys say it's complicated. So like what kept you like grinding and just going?
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll start from this side this time though.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so for things that keep me going, definitely interacting with the other officers I work with. I mean, so for MSCs, there's only 6 of us like actually working in the MSC career field. So Yes, on the space, 1,000 in the Air Force. So just hanging out with them and getting to talk about my daily struggles, I think, is probably my favorite part. As far as the package, that was an easy one for me. I was enlisted for 6 years, and I went to school at night, taking full-time, as many classes as I could. If I made it through that, I wasn't going to let the package be the thing that kept me from commissioning. It was definitely challenging to do all the upgrade training. I was medical as well, so I was a foreign and had quite a bit of training to do. So once I made it through that, I knew that the package wasn't going to be the reason I didn't commission. So I think that's really what kept me going through that process.
So for me, like I said, I'm a nurse. What keeps me going is good patient care, taking care of everyone. We don't have a lot of, we're really, really busy, so we don't really get out. We don't get out of the clinic almost ever. I had to rush here at the last minute just to make it here. It's a very taxing job. It's, one of the few that we are the workers versus the, managers type thing. So, I love it. I've always, I don't know if I'd always wanted to be a nurse, but when I was enlisted, I was a combat camera photographer, and I used to go deploy a lot, and I would go on AE missions, and they kind of inspired me, the aeronautical evacuation nurses, to do that. So that's kind of was my focus. I was like, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do. And I kind of just let it be my goal. I was also a tech sergeant with a young child. I was overseas, so it took a long time of going to school, driving pretty far to different bases to get the classes that I needed to do, because all of those were medical type science classes, and not everywhere, offered them. So it was a long struggle, but I just had that goal in mind, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And if I don't get it, I don't get it, but at least I will do everything that I can. And I was like, I can suck this up. I can do this till then. I can do this. I can suck this up for 2 years. I can work, manage, I can have my kids and go to night school and do all my homework, and I can do this for 2 years. And that was my goal. I was like, I just set myself parameters, like, okay, I only have to do this for 1 more year. I only have to do this for 6 more months. And then I did it. And then I was like, now I just got to put my package in and wait. I had orders to Idaho when I found out that I got this, and I was like, sweet, not going to Idaho. So Florida instead. So that was nice. It was a really, really good feeling that all that work was not for nothing. So just small goals, like I can do this for this semester, I can do this for this year, and I think that's how I was able to do it.
I think for me, what keeps me going day to day, understanding that although for support personnel, it's kind of like a thankless job, but understanding that you have the ability to touch so many facets of everyone's life, from, when a newborn gets enrolled in DEERS to, the flip side, mortuary, taking care of our fallen and making sure that they're honored appropriately. That's a big deal. So knowing that and really honing in on that keeps me going, and just the day-to-day interactions, you have the ability to really touch someone's life within the MPF, whether, they're having a bad day and you can reach out to them and say, hey, I know this is going wrong, but here's how to do it. So that's what keeps me going. And through the commissioning process, for me, when I had a slot for field training, that's kind of the big deal for us. It was the year that the Air Force was doing all the cuts, so it was 42% selection rate nationwide through ROTC. And for me, I was like, I am commissioning. So with that in mind, it's very competitive. So they looked at every little thing that you did. So whether it was the late nights and making sure you maintain your GPA and make sure you're out and you're seen. So to get through all of that and know, know, at the end of the day, you know, I'm the first person in my family to commission. Everyone in my family is Army, and they're all enlisted. So having that in my mind, like I got to push through to be an example for my nieces and nephews and for my family. So, yeah.
Day to day, what motivates me, I know this is going to sound cliche, but it's honestly my people. I lead over one of the largest flights in the medical group, so I have a lot of different sections and facets that, you know, take up my time, but I also know the personal aspect of the people, and if they don't have my support, then they don't have support at all. So if I'm not engaged, they're not supported. So that's my motivating factor, and I when I see them have their small wins, like for instance, one of my newest airmen just got BTZ, and that meant a lot to me, like because he's worked very hard for it, and I never thought that seeing someone that works for you win BTC would affect me that much, and I'm their leader, and I was like, that just made my month. So it's just something to think about in that aspect. Going through the and then also I come from a family full of military, like Captain Lewis. My father was an officer, so when I was going through it, that was kind of like my motivating factor. But also I wanted to be the first prior E to O as well. But also I really enjoy serving, and I found that servant factor, and you can also lead and serve, which is very different to be an appointed leader. So I don't know, it's just different that way. I guess it's a real personal question in that regard. And like, I mean, I could ask you, like, what motivates you every day? Like, why are you sitting here? There's something that brought you here to want to be here, to want to learn this information. So that's probably the point that you should ask yourself is like, okay, why do I want to be officer? For me, I didn't have a lot of officer experience being security forces because you don't have a lot of officers in that career field. But what I will say, the engagement I did have with some of the officers I had were really great and really negative. And so there was nothing in the middle within my enlisted career, right? And so that meant a lot to me. If I was going to be commissioned, I wanted to make a difference and make things better for people, because that's what officers do. We usually move rocks out of the way so that everyone else can do their job. When I was going through the process, what kept me going was, you know, I guess I had a high view of myself. Our selection rate was just under 50% at that point. And so I thought about it, okay, if I'm in a room with two people, I'm the second person, am I gonna let that person beat me? Or are they better than me? And that's just the way I looked at it in the numbers game. So I worked really hard. I thought about the whole airman concept. We take our GRE or the GMAT for our career field. My GRE score wasn't very high, I'll admit that. But I had the whole airman concept, and I had the backing and the support of my leaders. And so that's just really important. Like I said, communication and wanting to be better. So right now our selection rate dropped even more. I think it's around 35%. But that's another way to look at it. If you're one of 3 people in the room, are you better than the other 2? So you want to put the numbers game and just think about it.
So I think what Captain Rogan was trying to say is if you're not first, you're last, right?
Yes.
Okay, exactly. So my theory is like there's 2 different types of motivation, right? I like to keep everything simple. There's internal motivation, there's external motivation, right? And so I think you heard everybody up here talk about multiple things that keep them motivated. It's the same for me, right? And so obviously there's my family and then my desire to win. I don't like losing at anything. And then like Captain Rogan also said, it's really like the people, right? And so like looking out into the room, seeing you guys, right? That's my why most of the time. So I was in your seat at one point. And so everything I can do to empower you to get to where I am, I'm going to do everything in my power to make that happen. Unless you like are some sort of dirtbag and I'm like, oh, really? Like you do that on the weekends? Like I'm probably not going to help you out anymore. But just kidding. But to go away from the whole PC side of stuff and just kind of keep it real, I can tell you as a prior enlisted flight chief, I felt very helpless, like as a tech sergeant, because there was a first lieutenant that came to my unit and basically crushed my world. Like I almost exited the military because she had so much control over me. So granted, I had been in the Air Force for like 13, 14 years, and here's this, punk that's been in for 6 months and had that much power and control over me. And I told myself at that point, I'm like, I'm going to kick her, you know what? Like, and so that's very motivating, right? Like whenever you realize, damn, like I've got all this time in and I was doing everything I was supposed to, going through, like all the PME stuff, like, okay, so I'm going to mentor this lieutenant. I'm going to show this person everything I know. But some people just can't handle power. Some people can't handle how to control that power whenever they get it. And so watching this person go berserk and then in turn treat my people like trash, I'm not even going to go through all the things that she did to basically like try to destroy the flight, but it was pretty ugly. And you know, I had some mentors in the career field that I called, senior enlisted, senior officers, and folks that I called and be like, what do I do with this? You know what I mean? And you learn those lessons throughout your career. You know, like how many of you guys have worked for a micromanager? All right, what do you do when you work for a micromanager? You tell them every single thing that you're doing every single day, right? And be like, sir, ma'am, I'm going to the bathroom. Sir, ma'am, I'm going to fill out this form. Sir, ma'am, I'm going to go fill out my leave waiver. Sir, ma'am. And if you do that long enough, they're going to back off and be like, you know what? You do you, right? And guess what? Now you don't work for a micromanager. So trying to figure out how to manipulate those situations is one thing, but then that also intrinsically motivated me even more, right? Because it's external motivator. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to have anybody treat my people like trash. I'm not going to be treated like trash. And now I'm like within a few months of being the same rank as that person, so that's pretty awesome. But it's different for everybody. And, you know, find the thing that put your blood on fire and motivates you and use that. Because it is a grind. I'm going to tell you, it takes a lot of resiliency to sit there and go through school for so many years to work on the application process for a long period of time, and it's a grind. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no easy way around it, but you just got to set aside your time, continue to stay motivated, and your motivation's not going to be the same every day, right? Like I don't come to work motivated for the same reasons every single day. Someday it'll be Capt Rogan. I'll be like, nope, he's number one right now. I got to be number one again. So whatever it is, figure it out. Motivate yourself.
And I have one last thing to add. That I mean, most of you are airmen from what I see. Your first contract's going to go fast. And I don't know if some of you joined at 18. I joined at 22. When I first enlisted, and when I got to around close to my 6-year mark, you know, I was heading towards 30, right? And you think about it like, okay, what do I want with my life? So it's not like a life coaching scenario, but you think about these years that you're putting in and what you want to plug into it. So, because you get what you take out of it, or you take what you put into it. Yes, that's the correct way to say it. But yeah, so it's just something to think about, to walk away with.
So I want to plant a seed as I walk there. Is me wanting to make more money, you think, enough incentive to cross from enlisted to becoming an officer?
No, definitely not. You're a pilot. Or a doctor.
So actually what you just said made me realize something. So I also joined at 22. I had a couple of years at college kind of under my belt. I didn't enlist because college went super well. So I guess my question is, not only from your experiences, but from other experiences you've seen, how much does like the mistakes you've made in the past versus showing that growth and change matter? My GPA from my first try at college is abysmal. But I've since been taking classes. I'm doing 6 credits every 8 weeks. I have straight A's in all my classes, but I'm getting to a point where now I feel like either that past is going to haunt me, or I'm not moving fast enough to try and hit my goal in time. Like I'd like to be ready to commission before I hit 30, and I'm 27 now, so I'm worried I'm not going to finish everything in time if I don't put more into it. How did you try and find that balance?
Made a few mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. Just a few. I guess you'll get the prior enlisted true perspective. Being enlisted is not easy.
No, being enlisted is not easy, right? So I joined when I was 18, and I was full of dumb decisions, right? And so, like, when I got stationed at Fairchild, like, I remember the first time that I went out to a promotion thing, they were like, hey, go to the bar and get beers. I was like, I'm 18. And they were like, go to the bar and get beers. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Master Sergeant type, you know, this is 99, so whatever. So with that, growing up in that culture, right, I made a lot of mistakes. So I had multiple LORs throughout my mostly NCO years, just because, you know, I was like a star performer, but at the same time kind of just did what I wanted and had a big mouth. So you can certainly be resilient and like bounce back from those mistakes. As far as the school stuff, are you going to the same school that you went to before you joined the military? Okay, so your GPA only counts from where you graduate from. Yep. So if you've been doing relatively well at the school that you're going to now, so for example, when I was an airman going to school, like once a year, I would take a class and get like a C, right? And so I had all these C's. My GPA was like, I don't know, 1.8 or something. But then I think when I made staff or tech and started getting serious about school, that was also when my daughter was born. And I was like, you know what? I really need to like get my life together and quit messing around. And so I ended up doing 63 credits in 1 year. So depending on how much you want to dedicate yourself. So like, I was like, dude, I just want to be done with it. And so I took classes every semester, every mini-mester, took CLEPs and went to summer school like downtown. So I just fit it all in, and you can fit a lot of school in a short period of time if you really want, if you're like super motivated just to get it out of the way, which I highly recommend, because yeah, that year sucked, but how fast does a year go by, right? And then yeah, your GPA only counts from where you graduate from. So that's a win. So I ended up with 3.8 in my bachelor's, and I was like, yeah, I look super smart, and I'm not. So that's awesome.
So actually on that, I just had one more quick thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen distance learning negatively impact people's packages?
Not at all. Nope.
I would say probably the Air Force might prefer it because you're flexible, you're also working, you're gainfully employed, you're also learning leadership qualities as an enlisted member. So it's like to get both out of it. I also went to school for 3 years. I stopped going to school because I was an athlete and I got hurt, so that ended my career. But while I was in school, because I was an athlete, I didn't always focus on my school too much, so my GPA wasn't the best. It was good enough to stay as an athlete, but when I got out, there's no way I probably would have competed with some people up here. So when I joined the military and then I started going back to school, I finished my bachelor in Homeland Security, and I graduated with honors because my GPA started over at that school and I was focused. Like, that was what I wanted, because I thought at that point I was going to get out of the military. So I thought, one contract, get my degree done, go. I knocked it out so quick that I was like, hey, let's do a master's degree, while we're still here. So I started working on my master's, but I slow rolled it. Like, I think I took 2 classes within 2 years. And so it really wasn't priority. And then when I found out about the MSc, I was like, oh, I'm in an MBA. Oh, but you need to get your MBA done in a year. Well, I knocked it out in 9 months. So it's one of those things to think about, how much do you want? I was taking 3 classes at a time, as much as I could. And so I had to use my MGIB so that I could take that many classes, pass my TA. So it's really what you want. Don't worry about your past, because what you're doing now as an airman is what matters more than anything. The time that you're going to take to actually develop yourself and actually seek out those leadership opportunities and decision-making opportunities, because that is important. You learn how to lead people and then guide them and make a decision. If it's wrong, that's fine, but you'll learn from that. So take that time, seek out those things. You have one. Anything for you, Capitan?
Thank you. So same as them. I started off at college. GPA wasn't hot. Transferred colleges, and when I got serious about commissioning is when I really started getting into it and taking care of my GPA and focusing on my school. So I ended up with like 3.9 or something when I graduated, just because I knew what my goal was. Right? One upper.
He's the best MSc,
So same, definitely overcame that. And like Alex was saying, my GMAT score, I think I made the cutoff by 5 points. So it's you don't have to be the best at everything. Just show the whole airman concept is definitely important, I think. Also, nothing happens at 30 unless there's a required time in service, or so take your time and make sure that you get the development that you need and get the schooling that you need to put a good, solid package together, because that's more important. You only get a couple shots at this, so rushing it if you don't have to is not worth it.
Basically, if you want it, you're going to do what it takes. Nothing will get wrong. Sorry, one other thing.
Okay. And then we'll have to do this, and then we'll wrap it up.
So it's a concept of what the package is. The package is a filter, right? And if you think about it that way, they've made it difficult for a reason. That filter is going to weed out people that just want to do it for the wrong reasons. And the world is kind of shaped that way too. There's filters that are going to pop up, and if you really want a commission, you would make an excuse to let that get in the way. So Captain Gebele, I think every officer on this board has said that. that there's gonna be filters that pop up. If you let them filter you out, then you will never get a chance at the table.
That's great. It's a great way to close. Folks, I appreciate you coming. I will email each of you. I've got your names. I will send you the slides. If it's okay, I'll share your names and email addresses as well as the other mentors that weren't able to make it. And that way you are armed with the best information, okay? I ask you to take a look at, find out what program you think you're interested in, find out kind of what program you think you're going to be eligible for. If you want to be a pilot, then maybe you ought to understand what the medical criteria may be, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket to find out that you're not eligible. But look around, ask around, find the mentors, get involved, understand that every day that you walk into work is your interview to become an officer. Okay? Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.